to record. Recording is in progress according to Zoom. But there's reactions to the far right. Does everybody see reactions? Yep. Okay. Give me a thumbs up if you see reactions. Give me a thumbs up in the reactions bar if you see reactions. All right. So another cool thing you can do there is you could raise your hand, and that would be an indicator to us that you have a question and that we could address or answer. I think that's about all the tools you're going to need to get through today's meeting. And then when you do raise your hand, you have to lower your hand. Not much else we need to go over. I am recording this meeting, so it'll be available to you afterward. I'll probably send it out probably via YouTube link to everybody in case you want to review something, and for those that are not able to be here with us and join us today. I think that's it for welcome and Zoom guidelines. So I'm going to turn it over to Emrys. Emrys.
All right, thanks, Bo. Good morning. We'll, as we get conversing here, I will make sure I'll try to remember to have you introduce yourselves if you say something or ask something as we get going here. Because of the nature of Zoom, and it's different than being in a physical room, we won't do information or introductions all around quite yet, but I hope we can meet most of you at some conversation today. But I do want to make two introductions or myself first, but beforehand, she just stepped away from the monitor. Sarah was there, Sarah Armstrong from Montezuma Valley Presbyterian Church, which is in our neighboring metropolis of Cortez. There she is. Sarah and I are the cluster leaders of the Southern Cluster of Churches in our presbytery. There are 5 congregations. Sarah's been at it for a while. I am newly minted as a cluster leader. And so I wanted to just make ourselves available to you within those positions that we have. And I am also relatively newly minted stated supply at Allison Community Presbyterian Church in Allison, down there between Arbalise and Ignacio. And let's see, but also been in the presbytery for a while, this time around starting 2016 to now, although you haven't seen me so much while Sarah and I were, my wife Sarah, were directing Sunlight Christian Camp. But I don't know how many of you, I don't think I've met all of you face to face yet. So maybe it's worth saying that I've been in and out of the presbytery a couple of times. Western Colorado is my presbytery of care when I was an inquirer and a candidate way back in 99, 2000, 2001, all the way up to 2005 when I was ordained to serve a church in upstate New York. And then we came back in 2016. And now we're back again, staying in Pagosa for the time being, as long as God allows us to afford to live in this overpriced town. And yeah, we'll see what happens. But currently serving the Allison congregation and all of you by virtue of being a Southern Cluster leader. The next couple of things we'll do, we'll have a really short time of worship, which will just be a prayer, a song that Bo is going to call up for us on YouTube. And then I will give a really brief meditation on a part of First Thessalonians, and then we'll get into our conversation part. So let me ask, because I didn't see it on the mute practice round that Bo had us do. Can I ask who is phoning in from phone number 884-0355? It's not muted.
They must just be really quiet.
Maybe they're just really quiet. Now, so all of the reaction stuff and all of that Zoom doohickeys may not be available to them if they're on the phone. And oh, I see a chat thing. Is that coming in for? Euless is here. She's trying to get in, but she's here. So we addressed that chat thing. Who's on 970-884-0355? Does that person want to speak to it? Maybe we're muted. Maybe they
I don't know.
turn down the button. And the reason I ask specifically also is because phones typically, if the person doesn't know how to mute the phone, then there may be feedback on some things that we do, like the YouTube hymn I'm hoping we'll play in just a moment. But not hearing someone respond from 884-0355.
I wonder,
What happens?
I wonder if it's Kent Norgren. No,
Nope, Kent's there shaking his head in person. We see him on the
Kent
video.
just had to ask to be admitted again. So,
No.
okay.
Well, there he is again.
Oh,
Kent, you're all over the place.
He's okay.
You
Well,
are.
it's
Does
the,
anyone recognize the
it's
phone
the
number?
mystery 970 number. We may
Anyone
never
recognize
know.
884-0355? Should I recognize that? Is that an Allison number?
The Bayfield number.
Bayfield number, says Jerry. All right. Well,
All right. I'm
I'm
gonna
not
share
gonna spend too much time on it. Bo, do you have the ability, if necessary, to mute that?
I'm muting. I'm gonna mute that phone.
Okay, we're gonna mute you, 970-884-0355 from joining us from Bayfield.
They were pretty
And,
quiet to begin with.
Yeah, I know. We'll see what happens. Okay, here we go.
That was probably Carolyn Brown, maybe.
Is it, well, Carolyn Brown, I see her on the screen, so.
Oh, not her. Okay.
Well, I mean, it could be, but we'll be all right. Let me open us up with a brief word of prayer, and then we'll sing for a bit. Lord, thanks for the technology that allows us to gather this morning. I thank you for the leaders that are present here in this Zoom room. Thank you for the gifts that you have given them. Thank you for the willingness to sacrifice some time on a Saturday morning to have a conversation. And I hope and pray, we hope and pray that this conversation will strengthen us and bring us hope for the church and equip us just a little bit more for our mutual ministries. Make us a blessing to one another this morning. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. Now, for the song that Bo's about to pull up and play for us, because we're probably going to come in at different rates with our audio, it would be great to hear us all singing if we could keep it in sync. But when we're not in sync, it's a little less fun to hear us all singing. So I'll invite you to mute yourselves. And I'm hoping Bo's going to share his screen and maybe the audio from YouTube. There we go.
I know it, but I can't. Are they singing?
I don't know what they're doing. It's so quiet here.
Bo, we can't hear anything here.
Emrys, can you hear that? No.
I do not. It started and then it stopped again.
Right.
Really? My
Yeah.
apologies.
Try again.
I did not touch anything. Let me rewind. Apologies for that. You know what? I bet you. Okay, let me see if this works. Not
Okay.
if this works.
I will come to you in the silence. I will lift you from all your fear. You will hear my voice. I claim you as my choice. Be still and know I am here. I am hope for all who are hopeless. I am eyes for all who long to see. In the shadows of the night, I will be your light. Come and rest in me. Do not be afraid, I am with you. I have called you each by name. Come and follow me, I will bring you home. I love you and you are mine. I am strength for all the despairing, healing for the ones who dwell in shame. All the blind will see, the lame will all run free, and all will know my name. Do not be afraid, I am with you. I have called you each by name. Come and follow me, I will bring you home. I love you and you are mine. I am the word that leads all to freedom. I am the peace the world cannot give. I will call your name, embracing all your pain. Stand up now, walk and live. Do not be afraid, I am with you. I have called you each by name. Come and follow me, I will bring you home. I love you and you are mine. Do not be afraid, I am with you. I have called you each by name. Come and follow me, I will bring you home. I love you and you are mine.
All right, cool. Thanks, Bo. Made it happen. Carolyn's offered to look up the Bayfield numbers for us. I wouldn't sweat it. We've got it muted, and they can unmute themselves if they need to come in, or maybe they're on just to listen, which I recognize a possibility. So our meditation this morning, oh, by the way, if you haven't sung that song before and you've got the Glory to God hymnal in your congregation, that one is number 177 in the Glory to God hymnal. A show of hands, real or digital. How many of you have sung that song before? That hymn is part of worship. Anybody? There's one. Anybody? Couple few. All right. I never had before we got set up for today. I like it. All right. This is a brief reading and meditation from the first letter of Paul to the church at Thessalonica, chapter 5, verses 12 to 24. 1 Thessalonians 5, 12 to 24. Paul writes this: "But we appeal to you, brothers and sisters, to respect those who labor among you and have charge of you in the Lord and admonish you. Esteem them very highly in love because of their work. Be at peace among yourselves. And we urge you, beloved, to admonish the idlers, encourage the faint-hearted, help the weak, be patient with all of them. See that none of you repays evil for evil, but always seek to do good to one another and to all. Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, give thanks in all circumstances. For this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. Do not quench the spirit. Do not despise the words of prophets, but test everything. Hold fast to what is good. Abstain from every form of evil. May the God of peace himself sanctify you entirely, and may your spirit and soul and body be kept sound and blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. The one who calls you is faithful, and he will do this." So when I knew we were just going to, not just, but when our central, most of our time together was going to be about a conversation from questions and challenges that are coming up from the life of the church, it's hard to pick a single text that might speak to that. So I chose that text from 1 Thessalonians, which is kind of a catch-all. It's kind of a scatter shot. It's Paul wrapping up his letter and saying a bunch of things that he kind of wants to say to get in there to them as he's saying farewell. The church at Thessalonica didn't have any significant, really big problems to deal with, like some other churches Paul dealt with. So he could kind of say, be reminded of this, and be reminded of this, and be reminded of this, and let that be the case. So a couple of reflections from that passage from 1 Thessalonians 5 from me. He's addressing those. He's saying to the church to respect those who labor among you and have charge of you in the Lord. And I want to articulate my respect for you all, because you're the ones that have charge of the flock of God. You are the ones who admonish and try to encourage and carry along the other folks in the church, to encourage them and to keep them moving along in the good times, to help them in the hard times. And I want to honor you in love. You're doing the good work, and I appreciate your leadership in the churches, because I know that it's not easy, and I know that it takes effort, and I know there are surprises around every turn. So first, this morning, let me say a word of thanks for your leadership in the church. We are blessed to have you at the various helms. And a reminder that some of our central jobs are to admonish the idlers, those who may not be using their gifts to the fullest, to encourage them to do so, to encourage the faint-hearted, to help the weak, being patient always. This is, again, one of our, a good articulation of one of our central tasks, is to pay attention when those under our care are having trouble, and try to bring them along, to try to give them assistance, bring healing to them when they need healing more than anything else. To rejoice, to find reasons to rejoice in every circumstance, to pray without ceasing. I hope that we all know how to do that. I'm sure that we all have things that would keep us praying 24/7 if we fixed our minds on them. To pay attention to what the Spirit is doing, to hold fast to what is good in a very general sense. If we can do those things, I think then we could be doing a lot worse as leaders. And to round it all off, to remember that as much effort as we might put into our leadership for the church, Paul's final word for Thessalonians, verse 24, the one who calls you is faithful and he will do this. This being keeping us sound and blameless for the coming of the Lord Jesus. So in spite of all the effort we put in for God, we recognize that our success or failure really depends on God and God being faithful. And because God is faithful, we can trust that we and our flocks will be carried through to the end. And it is our task not to make God faithful and not to make God's work good, but instead to follow that faithful and good work. And if we're following that and doing as Christ did, then all will be well. So I guess that is meant to be a word of encouragement for us at the outset, a word of encouragement for you, and to keep us focused on the main thing, that God's goodness is working for Christ through us all the time, and to hold that before us as we get into the conversation for this morning. That's the word as I bring it from 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, and I'll move us right into the next item on our agenda, which is the big thing, the big reason we're here this morning, or the big reason that I should say Bo and Sarah and myself have invited you to be here in this space this morning. We got to talking about some things that we could talk about, and initially we had some folks come up with ideas for presentations to give, and then as circumstances unfolded, we got to thinking maybe the best format right now is to see what you all are struggling with, what you're thinking about, what your concerns are for the life of the church, to reflect on those a bit. And then maybe if we, Sarah and Bo and myself, find some things that down the road we say, oh, we can bring resources to bear on this, and we can bring something a little bit more thought out about this particular issue, then we will be mindful to do that. So the question that's about to be out there on the table for anyone to respond to is, what questions or concerns do you presently have about being in church leadership? What's on your minds? What are the issues that you're struggling with? What are the things that you're discovering about church leadership that are opening up for you that maybe have not opened up before and you'd like to describe to this group? This is not, so a couple of rules, some hard and fast, some really just real detail rules. The first one is, it's probably going to be easiest given our format if we do some hand raising before we speak. That's either a hand up to be seen in the screen so everyone can see it, which means holding up there maybe for a little while, or as Bo introduced us to in the reactions bar in the bottom, you've got a raise your hand, which will stay up there digitally until we call on you, so that we can take folks in order. And for this section, I'll be the moderator to call on folks and give you some room to speak. Since I'm inviting you to talk about what concerns there are in the church, for some of us who are problem solvers, that invites a response that says, well, you should do this, you should do X, Y, and Z about this thing you've just mentioned. And I want to pull back from that response to problem solve for other folks, but instead make this a time when we can say, here's what we're struggling with, or here's what our concern is, or here's what's unfolding for us, and just let the rest of us listen to that. I think it's fair game to share stories about maybe if something similar happened to us. If one person shares about issue XYZ, and we had an experience with issue XYZ, we can share that experience, but I want to be cautious about if someone shares an experience with XYZ and I say, oh, well, here's your solution to that. Just do A, B, and C. And I'd rather not do that. Chances are, because it's not just going to translate right directly from one person's experience or one church's experience to another. And it sort of stops the thinking process or the meditation process. So I don't want this to be a problem-solving session, but I want us to be free to share stories about maybe similar circumstances we were in, or if we're having opposite phenomenon happen in our churches, we can share those stories as well. Let's see. Sarah or Bo, do you want to jump in anything about parameters or guidelines before I open the floor? Looks like Sarah's unmuted.
Yes, I'm here with one of our new elders, Bryce, and he has some things to say, but I had envisioned people who'd been elders for a while giving Bryce some encouragement and advice, which is a little different than what you were saying. But we can do both.
Yeah, we can do both. So Bryce, there's an invitation, or any other elders who want to do so, to say, hey, give me some wisdom. It can be about a particular topic or just about being an elder or a deacon in general. Bo, do you want to throw anything else in before I open the scrum?
No parameters, just, I think, as we were reflecting last Thursday and we kind of we changed very rapidly to an online meeting because of spikes in COVID, and recognizing that we did not want to keep you all, staring at a screen for whatever the day had been planned for, 4, 5, 6 hours. That's the circumstance we find ourselves in. So I think this is an opportunity to be real with each other and to be transparent about, what are our concerns at this time, and what are the things that are, I might just encourage, take advantage of this time. That's my only input.
All right.
Because
you.
Emrys has all the answers.
I'm downloading all the answers to my quarantine room here at home, where I'm stuck for a little bit longer. Let's see. All right. So there's the guidelines. There's kind of what we're getting at. Would someone like to ask a question, invite us to consider some question or concern about being in church leadership right now for this season? Or in the case of Bryce or others, are there any questions that you'd like to get the wisdom from your more seasoned elders or deacons about? Waiting for the hands to jump up on those screens. Oh, there's a hand there. I didn't see your Bryce. Your hand
Right.
screen a little
I'm
bit.
going to introduce myself.
Go
Bryce
ahead.
Powell.
Oh, go ahead. And actually, thank you. That's another thing. When I call on you, if you would introduce yourself and what church you're from and what office you have, what ordained office you have, if you've got one, then that's the part where it's going to help us get to know each other and where we're from. So, Bryce, you can go first.
Bryce Paul, I'm with the Montezuma Valley Presbyterian Church. Really new to the leadership, and I am currently doing education, church education on their
It's his
part.
committee assignment.
Committee assignment, yes. And I'm all ears. Will be definitely learning as I go. So yeah, my background for professional, I work for the Forest Service, and there's a little bit of leadership there I have, but this will be definitely a new challenge for the education part. So.
All right. Anyone want to jump in and give a brand spanking new elder some wisdom, maybe especially one who's got the helm of or sitting on the group that makes decisions about education in the church? None yet, huh? Oh, Carol, go ahead. Introduce yourself and then speak.
Yeah. I can only tell you about one thing that we're doing that's new for education in Bayfield at Calvary Presbyterian Church. We decided to try out the Wired Word, which is an online Sunday school lesson for adults that ties scripture into current events. And although I'm the one that reads all of the lessons before I choose them, it seems to be working well for us. And so I would say that that might be something that you could explore for education for adults.
And I typed that in the wired word into the chat in case in case you need to see it spelled, if that's helpful.
So Carol, how is the Zoom format working for Bayfield? Or is it,
How's- Now,
what
we,
format is the Bible study?
for the wired word, the discussion that's held on Sunday mornings is in person.
Okay,
But that lesson goes out to everyone, regardless of whether they're at church or not. So
No,
it's always there for them to read and think about the questions and so forth.
especially for, that sounds really like a good lesson plan based upon our current situation with COVID and also for me, work. So this will be, yeah, we'll definitely look into it. Thank you.
All right, I'm seeing Melanie's hand patiently digitally raised. Go ahead, Melanie. And introduce yourself before you say what you're going to say.
Hi, I'm Melanie Mazer, and I am on the session with Carol at Calvary Presbyterian in Bayfield. I just wanted to second the wired word is kind of cool. I am chronologically challenged. I can't make Bible study at 9 a.m. on Sunday. It's just not going to happen. But I get the email and I glance, I try to read it every week. If I don't read it, I glance at it. So it's just a way to kind of tie your congregation together, even if, the working moms can't make it to Bible study. So I'm glad Carol found that for us. I think it's been a good part of our structure this fall. And as far as Zoom, we just broadcast. I'm kind of in charge of that, so that's sort of why I'm popping in. We just kind of show Jane or Jane Martinez, or I can't remember the real name, what she is. She's an interim pastor. We show our service, and we have 6, 7, 8 people coming online every week. Sometimes it's only 3, sometimes it's 2, but we've always had somebody. We have a couple homebound folks right now. And so I just say, if that's, there's a technological hurdle to get over. I'm not a tech guru, but I've done okay. So, but if you wanted some suggestions on that, I'm going to refer you to our other gal who does it. So, but it's been a good way to stay in contact with people. And I'll quit babbling now. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Mel. I see Carolyn's hand up. Carolyn or Jerry, one of the two.
you can
Exactly,
interact.
yeah.
And you'll have to unmute yourself because you're muted still. And introduce yourself and then say your thing.
Okay, I am Carolyn Brown from Bayfield from Calvary Presbyterian Church. I've done our Christian education, especially for kids, for a long time. And I would say on a different course here with the new person over at Cortez, number one, you do not have to do everything yourself because that's just impossible. So you need to recruit other people and to recruit helpers and to get good people who want to do the work, find out what people's strengths are, go to those strengths and ask those people if they will help you with that, and lead by letting them know that you know what their strengths are. And those are very valuable things to learn, and usually learn the hard way.
Jane, your hand's up. Go ahead.
Hi, I am the aforementioned Jane Martinez, the stated supply at Bayfield. I just wanted to add in that another thing we did using that email to everybody, we had an Advent devotional, and we plan to do the same thing for Lent. The denomination has those daily devotionals for those seasons that one can, for a relatively low cost, purchase and then send to everyone in the congregation. Either print it out and mail it or email it. And in the end, our midweek Bible study ended up using that as their Bible study during the time of Advent and Epiphany. And so that's a way to connect people who may not be able to physically be in the same place. And the other thing that we do on Sunday mornings, they don't look at just me. Fortunately, I make a PowerPoint each week, and we've also gotten to the point where we can display that in the sanctuary too, so everybody can look at that. But even though our Zoom numbers are small, there are a couple people who are very regular on Zoom who have never been to the church. And so we've connected with a couple folks in the broader community who feel connected at least that way, or we're caring for their worship needs that way. So even though we're not big and we're not fancy, we're trying to be community.
Thanks, Jane. By the way, if you click on the Zoom reaction thing to raise your hand will stay up digitally until you tell it to lower the hand. That's going to drive me to ask whether, Melanie, did you have something else that you wanted to say or ask? Or was it just the hands? Oh, she moved around. Where'd she go? Like, there she is. All right, her hand's down. And Carolyn and Jerry, oh, looks like your hands got lowered as well. And then you moved too. Anyway. Oh, and I see Bryce's hand again. So Bryce, go ahead. You'll have to unmute.
Oh, I thought I did. Sorry.
There you go.
There you go. Jane, this question's for you. Can you edit Zoom for the recording? Just curious.
We don't record.
Okay.
Bo does.
Can someone speak to that? Whether you can edit Zoom after it's recorded?
I think Bo uses Zoom too for his recording.
Oh, go ahead. You're muted. There you go.
Sorry, I'm trying to do too many things at once. Yes, you can, but we don't edit our Zoom videos within the Zoom platform. We download them as I want to say it's an MP4 or something like that, but it's a video file. And I don't personally do this, so I couldn't walk you through it. But what I think the program we're using, if you have Mac, it's pretty simple. It's in iMovie that we're editing those. And so for each week, we have posted to a YouTube channel we've created for the church. We have the entire worship service, and then we'll edit out just the message. And then, for instance, if there's, which we haven't had a lot of, but like say the choir's doing some special music or something like that, we might edit that out as well and have like, choral piece. That way people can kind of pick and choose on the YouTube channel what they would like to view. So it is possible. I'm not sure how to do it on a PC. I've done it just the once on Mac, and then I actually have someone else do it for me week to week because I'm not very techy, but it is doable.
Thank you. Anyone else have a question or an concern or an issue you'd like to put out there for us to chat about? I'm seeing no hands yet. Then I'll pull one out there. This is what I'm interested in, terribly interested in. So, COVID for the last 2 years has changed the dynamics of a lot of what we do. And I'm wondering here in your congregations, what have you been doing differently or new in order to stay in touch with people? What old things have resurfaced, or what new things have you been trying just in order to keep in touch with people when everybody has become distant and far away? What have you been trying out? What's working? What's not? Is there a hand in the back at Bob's one? No.
Virginia Condit from FPC Durango. And when COVID first started 2 years ago, I decided that our young people, our youth, since they weren't able to go to their high school class, I decided to start sending them a card every month to just remind them how much Jesus loves them and how great they are. And it's had a good reception.
Wow, that's great. Love it. Send a card every month. So is that to say you send a card to every young person in the church every single month since COVID?
Every year.
Every week?
No, I said every youth.
Every youth.
Uh-huh.
And they get one every month. So it's a monthly discipline.
Yes, like now I'm getting ready to send out Valentine cards.
Okay.
That also have a message about God. And of course, I send a monthly card to our shut-ins.
So you kind of took is that to say you have been sending a card in the past out to shut-ins?
Yes.
You just kind of rolled the youth into that.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Thanks. I like that. That's pretty great. That's going like way back, like sending physically via snail mail.
That's it.
Thanks, Virginia.
You're welcome.
Other responses to that question? How have you been staying in touch? Trying to stay in touch more, bridge that gap. Barb.
One thing that was in place at, I'm Barb Kahn at First Presbyterian in Durango, and it was in place before COVID hit, but it's probably been a lifesaver for our church. It was called the Deacon Care Program through the deacons, and the entire membership and friends, anyone that's in the directory or anyone that comes in, that we can get that information, then get on to a list that's broken down to the different deacons. Each of us has a list, and some of the deacons are better than others about keeping track, but it's been very, very helpful. People really appreciate it. Even if you see them all the time, oftentimes you just say, hi, this is your deacon call. I'll see you at such and such tomorrow or whatever. But other ones that are homebound, you find out how they're doing, their families are doing, and everything else. So if you don't have something like that in place, you might really think about it.
So what's the main means by which the deacons are reaching out?
They're calling.
They're calling. It's a phone call?
Well, I think most of us call.
Okay.
So I think I'm doing okay if I make it once a month.
Okay.
Emrys, at Montezuma Valley, we had a calling program when COVID first started, and people got sick of getting calls. So our calling program stopped, and instead we're doing email. We take prayer requests and we mail out probably 2 to 3 a week, asking people to pray for these prayer requests. So people are getting a lot of mail from the church. When COVID was at its height and the kids were staying home, we were taking bags of Sunday school material each month to the kids. They were large paper bags with handles full of training material and candy and stuff, seasonal stuff, and little books to read. When they went back to school, we stopped doing that, and we were reaching out to kids that weren't regulars. So we probably need to think about how to reach them again. Then everybody was out of school the last 2 or 3 Sundays. The kids haven't been here. So they've missed Sunday school those 3 Sundays. We don't have a fallback plan for when our kids don't show up. We tried starting a youth group when we were in person and had a hard time reaching the high school age. So yeah, it's been a hit or miss. You try something and it doesn't work. You try something else and it might work for a while. And we're just keeping on trying to reach the people.
Okay, that's the task. Keep on trying. Laura, I see your hand.
Yes, Emrys, I just wanted to piggyback on what Barb mentioned that our deacons are doing. Oh, by the way, I'm Laura Woods, currently Outreach and Fellowship Chair at First Pres. But that program has been an absolute lifesaver to keep the congregation together verbally and communicating because of the fact we were shut down, but then we opened back up very slightly, but we haven't been able to have much of fellowship hour after our worship service. So we just didn't have a way to get people to talk, especially when it started getting cooler and people didn't want to stand outside in the snow and visit with each other. So that truly has been a real lifesaver program. And also our church administrator and Bo, both of them put together a wonderful, very newsy e-letter every week that lets everyone that receives the e-letter gets information, not only just about church, but what's going on in the community or our food bank and just everything that we do. Just keeps everybody attuned to what we're doing.
Thanks, Laura. I remember some, eons ago, like a year, when I would be on the Zoom worship for First Pres Durango occasionally. There was a Facebook group like fellowship hour. Is that still kept going?
No.
Okay.
No, we have not. We were actually, it wasn't on Facebook. It was actually on Zoom, a separate Zoom login. But no, we did stop it.
Is that because you went back to worshiping in person and you said, if we come in person, then we don't need that digital space?
I think, Bo, if I recall, we stopped that fellowship hour shortly before the congregation was really back in to church. I'm really not sure why we exactly stopped it, other than we seem to have a locked in key small group that we were on it every week, which was great. It was fine, but we did stop. I'm not sure why we ended up stopping it.
So two things, and the Zoom platform allows you to do this, but Emrys, you're recalling it on Facebook because we do broadcast our Zoom meetings over Facebook on our Facebook page.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So if your church can create a Facebook page and you have a Zoom account, like I said, I'm not techie. I couldn't explain to you how to do it. I just know that it can be done. And we track about, I think there's anywhere from 4 to 8 participants on Facebook each week in our worship hour. The reason that we discontinued the fellowship hour, the digital fellowship hour following service, is primarily participation. We just had several weeks in a row where nobody was coming to the fellowship hour, which, I guess, just trying to shift gears in the conversation here to concerns. One of the ongoing concerns I have is I have no idea why people are doing what they're doing when they're doing it. I haven't for 2 years. And that concerns me. I don't know if anybody else is experiencing this, but I don't know why people stopped coming to the digital fellowship hour, and I'm left to fill that vacuum with assumptions. Maybe people are zoomed out. They don't want to be on a screen any longer. They've already been on a screen for an hour. They don't want to do it again. Maybe to do fellowship on a digital platform is something that doesn't work, whereas to broadcast a worship service does work. I have no idea. We had a really poor turnout for our Christmas Eve services. We had 2 services, but we had a better turnout in the second service, which has always been the lowest turnout, and the poorest turnout in the first service. I have no idea why. And I don't know if people were checking in digitally. I don't know if they watch us on YouTube later. Am I alone here? I don't know what's going on. Does anybody else share that concern?
Anyone else have the sense that you have no idea what's going on?
Yeah, did that prime the pump a little? I feel like we're talking about solutions without getting to like what's bugging us right now or bothering us or raises our, I feel like everybody's stress level, the baseline stress level is up here somewhere where it used to be down here somewhere. But why? Why is it up here? For me, one of the things is I have no idea why people are doing what they're doing.
Anyone else relate to that and want to speak to it?
We film our worship service on an iPhone, then download it to my Mac and or somebody else's Mac and edit it down to half an hour and put it out on YouTube and Facebook and on our church webpage. And I have no idea who watches it. I know several shut-ins do. And I haven't done a good job of tracking who's looking at it. Where even if they look at it, it doesn't mean they're watching the whole thing. So yeah, it's frustrating. You don't have the old coming out of the sanctuary, Pastor, I was really interested in this point that you made, or yeah, or walking by you, and you know you didn't hit that point. So yeah, you're in the void and you're just doing the best you can, which leads right into what Susie and I are doing.
As I watch, so full disclosure, I'm a long form guy. I read long form journalism. I watch long form videos. When I go on YouTube and I look up like how to do a dovetail joint for a corner of making a cabinet, and I have a selection of things, I will scroll over the videos and I'll quickly look at the timestamp on them. And if the video says, you know, I'll have one that's 3 minutes, one that's 15 minutes, one that's an hour and 30 minutes on how to do a dovetail joint, I will click on the hour and 30-minute one on the assumption that I'm going to get more detail out of that person. I'll read an Atlantic article, which is 20 pages long about something, but I get really irritated with the lack of information in a newspaper length article, for instance. I'm noticing as I hang out with the guys that I work with in my other job, I do construction part-time, they will not stay on a screen that's offering them some sort of information, whether it's like entertainment information or information you might consider useful. They won't stay on a screen for more than 15 seconds. And then they're on to the next thing. And I mean, the stuff that's flipping through is that they're flipping through is so fast. So there's I'm watching in the world something that I used to just refer to as short attention span, but that sort of, I think that sort of just gets compressed and we do an eye roll and we say, oh, the kids these days don't have a long attention span, and sort of dismiss that. But I wonder now, you know, I've begun to wonder what the impact is for the church, because the church has always specialized in some sort of long form thing, right? Like we have full sermons and we do full worship services, etc. And it seems like we're just not structured. Most churches are not structured for doing things in 15-minute second chunks and little bursts. That's not to say the church should be, but I wonder, I get to wondering, and that's just a wonderment that I'm putting out there. I wonder how that affects our life together as a society and how that affects our mission as the church. Melanie, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Okay, first, Emrys, I have to say you are the exception to the rule if you're willing to watch an hour and 30-minute YouTube video. So,
Yeah.
I think you know that.
I know.
Yeah, this is something, and I'm a newbie too. I've only been on session now at Calvary for a year, so I'm really enjoying hearing what everybody says. Yeah, I think we need to start thinking, I'm sorry, in the digital age, what's short, what's easy. There's something Jane showed to me the other day. It's an app called D365. And Jane, is that from the Presbyterian Church? Anyway, she showed it to me. It's designed for teens as sort of a daily devotional. It literally takes about 3 minutes, maybe 2. And but I'm gonna some of you know I'm a recent widow. I can't concentrate on reading right now. So she showed me D365 and I'm going, woohoo! I get a daily devotional in 2 minutes and I really like it. So yeah, I think we just, maybe I can't do it, but if I could edit down Jane's thing into, her sermon, I'd hate to edit down her sermon, but maybe just say, okay, here's the content, or here's the gist of today's sermon. And if we could get it on YouTube, that might be something to just give to people and maybe intrigue them to click on a button. I don't know. So, but check out D365. It's, I really liked it. And I shared it on Facebook. Sorry, there's my dog. And a lot of people liked it. I'll turn off now. Goodbye.
All right, thanks, Melanie. I see Norma's hand is up. Norma, go ahead and introduce yourself and say what you want to say. You'll have to there you
Okay, if I can get unmuted, there we go.
You got it.
I just want to comment at Allison. A lot of our congregation are elderly folks, so they don't do the social media, computer stuff. So we depend more on phone calls and actual visits to take them, the upper room and food, whatever we have going on that week. We do a weekly email. Michelle's really good about capturing the highlights at church and then the prayer requests. We do the email more often if we have requests for prayers. But we for sure do at least a weekly email to stay in touch. And we have provided food from our food pantry and electricity, help pay bills and propane and those kind of things for shut-ins and people in the community we know. I think the downcline in our attendance is more due to the illnesses, especially the last 3 months. We've had a lot of people in our area that have been ill. So hopefully we're going to get past this and everything will come back to like it used to be. That's it.
What else is out there to be said or to be asked? Well, let me throw out one more seed question, because again, this is interesting to me. As we've been talking about COVID changing things and where we go and how we interact with people, et cetera. During these past 2 years, have you, as your congregation or individual people in your congregation, have they discovered any new mission or ministry opportunities? Have you had encountered experiences where folks in your congregation, or maybe you as leadership, say, hey, here's this thing we haven't done before, and now an opportunity is opening up, or someone maybe just by virtue of not being able to do the things they wanted to do during COVID, they found something else to do and it turned out to be life-giving. Any stories like that from your congregations or you all as the congregation. Go ahead, Bo.
Just to brag on my people a little bit, we have traditionally had every other year something called Veterans of Faith, which is any of our 80 plus in age members are celebrated. We serve them lunch. In the past, we've had our youth, maybe bus tables, things like that, and have a meal prepared for them, and just a brief thanks and honor their lives, honor their ministries. Of course, we weren't able to do that during COVID, and so our deacons put together basically like food baskets and hand delivered them to our folks that are 80 years of age or older. And I thought it was just an incredible adaptation of what we had done in the past. And I've only heard, really positive feedback from having done that. And so, a case where we had to significantly modify, and as it turned out, it was received really well.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. Bob in Virginia, go ahead.
I'm Bob Condit, and I am the chairperson of the facilities group at First Presbyterian. This is a little different from what we've been talking about, but it relates to the church. And when I became chairperson of the facilities group, one of my primary goals was to do things at the church that would benefit the church, both from an aesthetic point of view, but also from a financial point of view. One of the items that I saw initially when I got to looking at some of our costs was our high cost of electricity. And we went in, and I've got a couple of guys from the group went out and looked, and we decided to replace as many of the fluorescent bulbs with LED bulbs. And we did that. We've done about 50% of the lights in the church. And what we did was started at the areas that were used the most and proceeded to go to the areas that are used the least. So the church is benefiting financially. So what we're saving on electricity, we can use that money for some other source. So that's one point, that one area that being in facilities, we benefit and the church benefits from. And keeping the church beautiful with paint and fixing damaged areas, that's a benefit, because people will come in and say, oh, this is really nice. It's not broken down or dirty or anything else. And that's where we're working in the facilities area. So if anybody has any suggestions, I'm welcome to listen to them. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Go ahead, Euless. You'll have to unmute yourself first and tell us who you are.
I'm Euless Gardell. I'm deacon at the First Pres Church in Durango, and I think Bob understated what the facilities committee has done, because in the last couple of years, not only have they renovated the major meeting area, put new floor and paint and everything, but we have 56 solar panels on the roof, if any of you didn't know. And Bob in Virginia did all of the feeding of all these people that were working on the roof with the AmeriCorps. I mean, it was such an incredible undertaking, and it's churning in, it's working. So we have this wonderful array of solar panels. You can't see them from the street, but if you hang out in the alley or go into the playroom, 56 of these panels are really working for everybody. So environment included.
Yes.
I just have to compliment Bob because he's always understating stuff.
Thanks for that, Euless. Yeah. I especially love the idea that you can discover new things by hanging out in the alley behind First Pres Durango.
Always good.
Always good. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Anyone else? New things discovered, new possibilities, opportunities, new ministries. All right, if there's nothing burning to come out right at this moment, then we've got something prepared from Sarah and Susie for next. And so, not seeing any hands jump up when I say that, let me pass over the mic, so to speak, to Sarah. And I don't know if we got Susie Meyer on today. Were we expecting her or not expecting her to make it today?
Susie can't be with us, but we recorded our presentation and I think there's a 5-minute break before we do that.
Before we do that? Okay, great. Yes, I was going to ask about that too, because, you know, Zoom keeps us sitting in front of things for a long time. Set your watches, look at your clocks. We're going to take a little 5 minutes hiatus and we'll be back. So mine says 10:42. That's going to be 10:47 my time. We'll be back in 5 for Sarah and Susie's presentation. Look at them all disappear, 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 disappear. They're all gone. Good. Taking their well-earned break.
Oh, Emrys? Emrys?
Yes, go ahead, Dan.
I just wanted to know, I snuck in. I called
saw
in
you.
initially and finally got the full Zoom with the video and whatnot. So I just want you to know I snuck in.
Thank you. I saw you come in the back door. It's all right. How are you feeling?
Well, pretty good. I'm not 100%, but a lot of fatigue still.
Yeah.
And anyway, we're doing okay. And I hope that you are. Yeah.
Do you have pretty regular therapy sessions you go to?
You know, they're kicking me out of it.
Oh.
They're saying that I'm making pretty good progress and continue to do the work things that I'm doing. And we'll see how it goes. So I have my last speech therapist. It was 3 a week, then 2, then 1 for, I don't know, a couple of weeks. And we're going to have the last one this coming week. So we'll see how it goes. And they said, you know, if I feel like I need to get back into it, I can switch.
Okay. Well, that is good news then that they're kicking you out.
Yeah. I think they're giving up on me, but good as I can get. But we'll see.
I don't know. I always found those therapy folks to be pretty tough. They, you know, set a high bar and wanted to make sure you get. So.
Yeah, you're right. They do.
Sometimes we want them to give up on us, and they won't.
But yeah, it's been very good.
Good.
A lot of good reasons to be very thankful.
Mm-hmm.
And Dan, it's so good to see your smiling face.
Oh, well, thank you.
I'm
Thank
glad
you.
you're doing okay, hanging in there.
Yeah, I am getting a little better, I hope. every day and enjoying that.
Wonderful.
Thank you. I'll go get another cup of coffee. Be right back.
All right. How have you been, Laura?
I've been fine. We're enjoying a little warmer weather. We're in Florida.
Oh, that's a lot warmer. Yes.
Yeah, although it's rainy and very cool today. Cool, it's about 56 degrees out.
Oh, bone chilling.
Bone chilling. But my bones are liking it better than that cold, icy, snowy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you practiced snowbirds now? You're down for the cold season and up for the warm season?
Pretty much so. Yep, we've
Okay.
been leaving almost every year since I finally retired. For 3-4 months, we're gone. So, and loving it. I'm loving it because it gets me away from having to be on my oxygen. Because since I have to be on it at home and I don't need it. Once I get below like 4,000 feet, I don't need it.
Okay.
So I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm back to my old self again when I'm more at sea level.
Right. Yeah.
But then I
Yeah,
got to come home and enjoy my mountains.
Changes all of life when you can't breathe completely.
Yeah, it really does. That it
Yeah.
does.
Hey, Emrys.
Yeah.
One logistical question. You'd sent me that those lyrics for Let Us Tongues and Talents or Talents and Tongues.
Yep.
Is that for later or are we skipping that?
That is for later. That's our closing song.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry. Okay.
All right.
I'm gonna get share screen ready, y'all.
Okay. And Norma, by the way, if you can hear this, your raised hand is still up. Your digital hand raised. Oh, wow, they're YouTube famous, Sarah and Susie. And I can no longer see Bo, who's back on the call and visible. But I do know we've finished our 5-minute break. So I'd say whenever, and if Sarah wants to say anything of intro, maybe.
Yeah, as I'm scrolling through, I see that most of us are back. Just a couple folks still missing. But maybe if Sarah wants to give us a brief introduction to this time she shared with Susie, that'll get everybody back and we can play the video. If
Hi,
Sarah,
everybody.
oh, there she is.
So Susie and I spent time thinking about the effects of COVID on the church. And we talked back and forth about what our perception was and some of the things we've already touched on in Emrys's roundtable. So just bear with me. I think it's 15 minutes or so of us discussing things, and maybe it'll spark some ideas in your head of things that you've tried or reactions that you've had to COVID in your churches, and some things then we'll move on to what can we do and what new things can we do. So take it away, Bo.
So here we are, 2022, and we're still talking about COVID and its effects on the church. I was preparing for my annual meeting this week, and I looked at last year's annual meeting report, and it said, we hope that COVID will be over soon. And here we are a year later saying the same thing.
The pandemic has been really tough on everybody, and it's been tough for a long, long time.
For me, the marker or the essence of COVID times has been this constant pivoting and having to rethink and restart whatever I try to do. And then cancellations. We had to cancel our Christmas Eve service. Well, that was due to weather. We canceled we had a huge community Halloween party planned. We canceled it. We've done, yeah. It's been an endless game of stop and go. Shall we meet? Shall we close? How do we demonstrate faith and love in the midst of fear and conflict?
So many of our people have been hurting because we've been surrounded with grief and loss and the fear of losing people we love or getting sick ourselves, and politics and economic hardship and supply chain issues and resentment of people who made different choices because does that mean I was wrong? There's been uncertainty over what's safe and what isn't, and it all has come to roost in the church as well as everywhere in people's lives. When people are stressed, they don't always behave well, and we have some distrust and conflict that we didn't have before.
Yeah, conflict over the right way to worship. Online and in person in our churches, do we worship with masks or without? Do we sing or do we not sing? Do we take everything outdoors, which we did for the summer? Do we pass the peace, the plates, the trays? How do we do it to keep our people safe, but still give glory to God?
Do we use bulletins? Do we use our hymnals? Do we hold coffee hour? How do we hold COVID safe funerals?
I agonized over my own father's death. We had to wait a long time until there was a space in the COVID statistics where we could get together and have his funeral, but a lot of families didn't even get that. There's such a fear people had of, am I going to be next? Am I going to die? Or my family? And then there's so many dreams that have been deferred. Families separated when they need to be together. There's this huge increase in the need for counseling. In fact, in our community, there's very few available counselors. And I heard from someone who's in mediation that there's a lot of people doing what he called emotional cutoffs, where it just becomes overwhelming that I'm going to cut myself off from you and have nothing to do with you. And so it's been tough psychologically too.
It has. I was in the hospital earlier this year for major surgery, and you couldn't come see me, Sarah. I was in there by myself. Pastoral care has been really different, and it's harder because when it can't happen in person, some of us just don't know how to do it very well. And I think we might not have comprehended early on how isolated some people were feeling and how long it would be before they felt comfortable to be back together with others.
I think everybody in our community, not just our church, but our community, was realizing that we need to support our medical staff, our hospital staff, our teachers, our emergency and police, and the people that were out there really holding our community together. And we were trying to figure out how to do that. We did cookies, but what do cookies help with?
I don't think they do help. My husband works at the hospital, and one evening I asked him how his day went. He said, well, we flew out 3 people who were intubated, but we got cookies. We need to keep all of those people in our prayers because they've been doing this for 2 years now. One of the aspects, though, one of the hard aspects of these past 2 years that has ironically given me great hope is the yearning for God that I've seen and I've heard. COVID has taken so much from people, and yet in the midst of that loss, they knew they really needed the church. They needed the comfort of being able to worship together, to pray and sing together. They really want to sing together. They need to hear about each other's lives. They need to talk about how God is present in the midst of all this hardship. And figuring out how to make that work has been a challenge. Fears have been close to the surface, and feelings are very tender for pastors as well as for worshipers.
Yeah, I've noticed online a lot of pastors talking about burnout and thinking about retirement. And this is on top of the fact that we have an aging pastoral leadership. Like over half of our pastors are 64 and over nationally. And a lot of them are thinking, this has been so hard that this is probably the time that I need to retire. I just don't have much left to give. And so those of us who are still pastoring, it becomes even more difficult. There's holes where people used to be working together. And, you know, those of us who are still trying are realizing that it's taking a lot of more energy to do what we used to do.
Yeah. I think technology is the elephant in the room in this discussion too, because I'm not quite 64, but I'm getting there. And I have a much harder time learning new technology than I did even 10 years ago. The learning curve has been just straight up. And in churches that don't have tech staff, it's forced a lot of people to spend a lot of time on tasks that are now essential to ministry, but that aren't themselves ministry. Copyrights and permissions for streaming are a new task that's invisible to worshipers. And it was a brand new skill for most of us. And Sarah, I think you had to dive in a lot faster than I did. Do you think worshipers realize how much time we spend just trying to make it work?
I don't know. I know that they notice when I turn to the camera at the beginning of the service and welcome those who are joining us online. But I'm not sure that they know that I'm recruiting film, that I'm recruiting something to edit, or doing something that it takes 2 or 3 hours to edit the worship service and put it online and out there. At the same time, it's reaching people that we didn't reach before. Our shut-ins are able to attend worship even if they're not able to participate. And it's reaching my mother in upstate New York and my daughter in Peru. They can attend worship with me in a way that wasn't possible before.
That's true. Technology has changed the way we think about congregations and membership. And that's a genie we can't put back in the bottle. We can worship anywhere. We can worship in our jammies. And we can reach those who are quarantined or on vacation or homebound, but we also have to keep in mind that there are people right in front of us. And we're slowly figuring out what all of that means. I don't think anybody in this workshop today would say that God isn't everywhere, that he's not in our homes, in our workplaces, and outdoors, and in our electronic spaces, and in this meeting. But we've been taught to value the Sunday pilgrimage to a place where the focus is on God, and it's harder to worship at home. I really regret the challenge that some of our older worshipers have had, especially needing to acquire and learn new technology, or else they're excluded from worship. My mom is 88, and she has a list of instructions taped to the side of the computer. But it's hard. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, my mom's 86. She's got the same problems. But I will say that it hasn't been all bad. There's been, I have absolutely loved the virtual choirs singing. There's a blessing that was sung in many different countries that was just fabulous.
I have loved that also. That music is simply glorious, and I wish we could all do it.
Yeah.
I really appreciate all of the technology that's being brought to bear on being the church in the COVID world. Forcing us all to move forward with that was a good thing, even if it was extremely painful and not always done very well.
Yeah. So we can celebrate all that we've had to learn by going online. At the same time, we accept that we'll never get it entirely right. And the technology keeps changing, and we're just doing our best to get it out there. There have been other high spots. There's some things that I came into this job really wanting to do, things that I'd wanted to do in ministry for many years. And one of them was to celebrate communion outdoors. And so my husband came with me and filmed me celebrating communion in a local park, Hawkins Preserve, sitting on the lava flow, breaking the bread and offering it to the camera. It was like I say, a fulfillment of a wish that I'd had for a long time. Another was to sing in the choir, to learn the alto parts. I love singing in harmony, and I never felt confident about singing alto. But since there wasn't anybody else, I learned they helped me learn. The other two people in the choir helped me learn how to do it this year. And it has been a real joy.
I once sang 4-part harmony with the alto and tenor and bass standing on the other 3 corners of our church intersection. And it sounds really cool, and it actually wasn't all that good, but it was fun.
You were out there
What
trying.
new things have you tried, Sarah?
Let's see. Our Christian education group wasn't willing to let the kids go without Christian education for a long time. And so they gathered bags every month. We would gather and put together bags for the kids of fun things to do and candy and stuff related to the time of year, and then deliver it to their houses. So they at least knew we were thinking about them and they had something to do when they were stuck at home. We did try to keep our staff on. We have several part-time people, and we ended up taking our tiny choir to the music director's house and practicing there and filming there. And we had the woman who cleans the church was deep cleaning in the kitchen that hadn't been done for a long time. And let's see, the secretary, we loaded the office computer and her and 2 of the filing cabinets in a vehicle and took it over to her house so she could work from home, and got really nicely sorted filing cabinets. So yeah, trying to keep the staff on was a challenge. We did Zoom Bible study, and people had a hard time getting on, but once they got on, it was better to have Zoom Bible study than no Bible study. We at least got to see each other and catch up.
You had mentioned to me about preaching to fear, Sarah, and how much of our preaching has focused on people's fears.
Yeah, I read it somewhere that during this period when people are so anxious and so concerned about many things, that it is every Sunday we are saying God is with you, you are not alone, that God will give you the strength to get through tough times, and see this illustration from the Bible. And yeah, so it was preaching the word of comfort and strength in the face of fear.
I get chills hearing a virtual congregation say, in Jesus Christ, we are forgiven, without seeing everybody who's out there receiving that grace, because it's pretty easy to forgive the people who sit beside you in church, but spreading that out really to the whole virtual world is awesome. Really quickly, I thought of a couple challenges. Budgets. Are you having fun with budgets, Sarah? I don't know how we can plan without knowing what's around the next corner. So we have really budgeted on faith, all of us. But watching whether giving would plummet or hold steady really taught me something about the culture of congregations, because I was awed by the places where people didn't say, why do we need to give? What do we need money for? We're not doing anything. Some places members said, we have money. What do we need to be doing with our resources right now in this place, in this time? And we had members who were out of work and members who were ill and needed to travel to be with family members, members who had all sorts of challenges. And the other challenge that I think of is mission. Socially distanced mission is kind of an oxymoron in our communities. And it was fascinating to me that in my congregation, some people who wanted to worship online because they were afraid to gather in the sanctuary were still pretty willing to take some health risks to continue their congregation's mission work.
Mm-hmm.
The challenges were immense, though, and they are immense, and we're still trying to figure that out. And there's always more to do.
Yeah. Yeah, both the presbytery and our local congregation with the budgeting, we don't know what's going to come in. We don't know what's going to go out or what's going to happen in the next year. And so we just adopted the budget, more or less the budget from the prior year. And then for mission, our food bank had too many volunteers. I volunteered to work there, but they didn't need me, which was really exciting that people were willing to take a chance and get out and help in the community.
I think that's really cool. And I think what I heard you say is we don't have much of a clue what we're doing, but we're trying our best every day. We are not ever going to go back to the way that life was before. And one of the lessons of the pandemic for me is the way we've always done it is gone for good, but God also is doing a new thing. And the glimpses of it, the glimmers that I can see right now are pretty amazing. So I hope in the hard times that I think are still coming, we can hold on to that.
Yeah. I think some people think that that we will go back to the way things were, but we have a huge opportunity right now to do things in a new way. And it's scary, but it can be really exciting too. And that's what we'll discuss next.
Did I stop the share screen, y'all? I can't tell. I did. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, you did.
I appreciate that. Great. Okay. Well, thanks to Susie, who's not able to be here with us, for taking the time to put that together with Sarah. I've been tasked with kind of a closing little piece here that's going to be two parts. I'm going to sort of try and prime the pump here to talk about really where Sarah and Susie left it, which is we're not going to go back to the way things were before. Yeah. Well, maybe I'll plug that in elsewhere. But what I'd like to do now is I'm going to offer just a few questions, and I'd ask you to, if you have pen and paper or you have a way to jot some ideas down or your thoughts down, it could just be single word answers to these questions, but I just want to kind of get us thinking here. And a part of, I guess the first question that came up for me that we're not going to go back to the way we did things before. Someone asked, when are we getting our bulletins back? And I thought, that's such a great question. And in their asking that, I thought, well, let's talk about that with staff and elders. And right now the conversation's gotten so far as to talk about it with our staff here at First Pres Durango. But yeah, when are we going to get our bulletins back? Not very many people curious about that. I've had 2 people ask, but it's a question that's out there. So I'm going to prime the pump with a couple of questions. If you've had some time to grab pen and paper, just jot down some ideas, first thoughts. Doesn't need to be anything extravagant. I'm just trying to get people thinking here. And maybe we'll start discussing some of these questions. And I guess the big question being, what is the new normal? And then I'm going to actually have us go into some breakout rooms, which sometimes gets us talking, I guess, a little bit more than in a group this size. I don't know what size these breakout rooms are going to be. I think I'm going to put you into groups of 4. And it's going to be randomly assigned. So we'll see how that all turns out. So here are some questions I have. And like I said, just, single word answers are fine. What of pre-COVID life do you miss the most? And with that question, what about pre-COVID church do you miss the most? I'll give you just a few seconds. Like I said, you could write down anything, coffee, fellowship. This question's come up a couple times already. But what new habits, if not habits, maybe programmatic pieces or ministry pieces, have formed that you want to keep? That if the pandemic were to end tomorrow, you would hope that you could keep this peace. Next question is, could God be showing us something, or what is God showing our churches through the COVID pandemic? Next question, related question to the first couple questions, but what would you bring back to church tomorrow? I think we're all going to church tomorrow. I hope you're all going to church tomorrow. For my people, you better be in church tomorrow, Zoom or otherwise. What would you bring back to church tomorrow? And along those same lines, what would you not bring back to church tomorrow? Something that had been there in years prior or is there now and you just want to be rid of it. We've been doing this during COVID and I'm so done with this. What would you not bring back tomorrow in the magical world where everything bends to your will? All right. So I hope you had a little bit of time there to just jot down some of your answers to those questions. Can someone tell me if I write those questions in the chat section and I do breakout rooms, will they stay in the chat section if I write those to everyone? We don't lose the chat section, right?
No, we keep the chat section until the end, and I think you'll get a transcript of the chat session. I mean, as long as the meeting's open, we'll keep the chat session. I'm not sure if the chats that go to everybody will be accessible to us while we're in our breakout rooms.
Okay.
Come back into the big group, then they're accessible.
Okay. So being that we're not sure if it'll follow you into the breakout room, does anybody want me to repeat those questions really quickly? Just so you have them in your mind. I know you jotted down some answers. Does anybody want me just to repeat them? Or do you think you got enough to go on? Because we're going to do these breakout rooms for maybe, what's our time? I'm going to give you guys probably about 15 minutes to talk in smaller groups. Okay. And you don't have to address all of these questions. I would ask you to stay on target though. Don't start talking about VBS summer of 2009 and, the legendary water balloon fight. Stay on task, right? Okay. All right. I'm going to do the breakout rooms soon here. Give me one moment. Breakout rooms. I'm going to create. We have 25 participants. So this should give us 5 people per breakout room. Okay. Assign automatically. I'm going to create them. This may kick you all out. Give me 1 second. Okay. Our rooms have been created. I'm going to now open the rooms. You should then receive, what'll happen is on your screen, it'll invite you to say you're being invited to a breakout room and just click on that. Does that make sense? And then if anybody's joining us by phone, I think it automatically just kicks you into one. Sound good? Okay, here we go. Elliot, are you still in here with me? Euless, are you still in here with me? All right, I think you guys went to rooms. Elliot, are you in here with me? Can you hear me? Your screen is frozen. Not sure. Uh-oh. Elliot, would you unmute? Uh-oh. Oh, now he's gone. Now he's just gone.
Now. Are you there? Anybody? Is anybody there?
Interesting. By Presbyterian missionaries. And it's a tiny agricultural community, but they have a very strong church and they always send a lot of people to
Hi,
try
we're back, buddy.
go in person. It's fun to meet all of you.
I know you're coming back into the big room, and I'd ask you to mute if you would, as you rejoin us here, just some of the chatter, background chatter down. And then I'm gonna ask you to speak too, so you have to unmute when you speak. Let me send this real quick. That'll send. First of all, did that work for most everybody to get into a breakout room? I'm not yeah, okay, good. And I hope the rooms you found yourselves in were not just all people that you already knew and had talked about everything with under the sun. I'm guessing not. I looked at them.
Well, of course it was.
It was everybody you already knew, Marie?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Oh, we just talked about this yesterday. Well, I guess just a few people, Emerson, I'm going to mute you. Yeah, just a couple of people check in. From those questions, I'd be curious to hear some of your responses. Don't all pipe in at once. I hope you went to, okay, John, John Thompson.
I'm not sure what group our number was. I think it was 1, but we had Gay and Marty and Kent and myself. And some issues, one person had more to say than another, of course, but I think we all agreed about what we missed the most, which is pretty consistent. Pre-COVID was personal contact, actually physical contact with people, that we really did miss that. And your question about what we would bring back to our churches tomorrow, we were a little quiet about that, but I think the fact we did agree that what we did not want to bring back to the church as leaders was fear. That we wanted to bring back that we have some hope for the future, even if we don't know exactly what the future is, which raised the question that you also asked, what is God trying to show us? And it was to have trust and faith in what he was doing with us and with the church in general. We didn't get too excited about bulletins. But about the new normal, a lot of us probably are not excited about that we may be somewhat traditional, but recognizing that there are going to be new ways to do things. And some of them might be kind of weird for us. And the word pivoting came up in our group, that we as congregations and leaders need to be able to do that because our pastors are already having to do it. But we've learned to go outside the building, which is not all bad. That's a good thing. Hopefully that kind of summarizes where we were.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Thanks for sharing that. Hey, we've got some background chatter going on, some page flipping or something maybe. Just want to make sure everybody's muted. Okay. Thanks for sharing that, John. Just to speak confessionally, when I hear, and I've heard for 2 years now, we'll never get back to normal, which may very well be true. I don't know what that means entirely, but I've heard several people say it. My heart kind of sinks. I don't like hearing that. We'll never get back to normal. I don't like hearing that on any level. There's grief for me personally there. And then as you were mentioning physical contact, I think I've told, in the last 9 years that I've served here, I've told our congregation, we really do just one piece of our liturgy really well. We do the call to worship, we're okay at that. We do the prayer of confession, we're kind of okay at that. moments of silence. We're pretty quick about that. The part of our liturgy that we do really well is the passing of the peace. Like, we're really good at that. And we haven't done it for 2 years. We haven't shook hands or hugged or any of that kind of physical contact. And, you know, for our particular church, and I imagine it's not just our church, but, you know, when the high point of your liturgy is taken away from you, you know, sermon might just be so-so, but the passing of the peace is always pretty good. That's been rough. Others, what would you bring back? What would you leave behind? What does new normal feel like?
I think we're group 3.
Sarah, did you have, or Bryce? Yeah, go ahead, Bryce.
Yeah, you know, hugs is one thing we missed. So, you know, the personal, you know, contact. The prayers of peace for sure. That was one on there for sure. And then faith. That question was, why would you know, our faith, and then just really having to be distant is really to put faith into the church, into God, and yeah, on that part.
So God's strengthening our faith. Yeah.
Yeah, God strengthened our faith within everything.
We miss the food.
Yeah. Yeah, the interactions, the social interactions. Yeah, I forget what else. Nice chicken scratch. You can go ahead and share too.
Bryce was saying he wanted to bring back, he wanted to have the ability to bring seekers into the church safely. That would be something he would rejoice in if we didn't have COVID tomorrow.
Yeah. Absolutely.
As far as the future for the
You're
church.
muted.
No, I'm not muted.
Oh, okay.
Am I muted? No.
I can hear you.
Okay. The one thing that I think that we'll see in the future with the church that we didn't have before and is going to be continued is the videotaping and recording of the church services, so that
outreach,
we expands our outreach significantly. There are people that can't make it to church for one reason or another. There's other people that don't want to come to church, but yet they feel that they need to hear the word of God. And from that reason and from that standpoint, the church will benefit dramatically by keeping video recording and the Zoom recordings of church services. So I don't think that's going to go away. It'll hurt us more if we do away with it than if we keep it.
Right. And the other thing, Bob, that we talked about was keeping the deacon's care list. And Mary, who's been a deacon for some time, and now Virginia and I, all think that the deacon's care list and that contact with, particularly with people in need or shut in and that type of thing. Just detail wise, we don't think we need to bring back the bulletin. So we can put those efforts somewhere else. And then what some of the other things we missed too is the passing of the peace. And again, we're talking about personal interaction and fellowship. We miss that greatly. We miss the children's and the youth ministry active. We would like to be able to revitalize the children's and youth ministry in person, and have them being active in that process. We would like for us to have some youth and children's ministry directors, partly to relieve Bo and Christian, but just to, again, as part of that ministry.
Yeah, thanks, Marie. Yeah, I've had to, I think the best way of putting it is I've had to repent of my previous views on technology, because I was the pastor that made fun of all the pastors who were being videoed and recorded and broadcasting over social media. And, I thought I was so going against the grain, and, not, just thought we'll never need that, and it doesn't do any good. And now it's something that is certainly not going anywhere for our church. And then I've really had to eat crow because my biological mother and my brother, who are not church-going people, would not identify as Christian, come to service. One living in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and my brother living in Connecticut. They come to service every Sunday. And
My mom comes frequently.
Fantastic.
Very good.
And so here I am, the guy that would tease people about being on video. And yeah, I mean, it's had an impact in my own life and in my own circle that's huge for me. So yeah, that's definitely not going anywhere for us.
Bo, didn't you say that some people that were on Zoom were contributing to the church that had never been to the church before, but were viewing our service on Zoom and then contributing to the church? I just thought that was something you had said.
If I had, I misspoke. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, Virginia. That doesn't mean it hasn't happened. I think what I have shared is that we have a couple of new younger families that checked our church out online before they came in person.
Fantastic.
And so we have the online service is kind of a gateway into the church, which is not something I anticipated. I anticipated it being more on the back end. Like if you missed church, you might watch it later, but I wouldn't have thought you'd tune in later or during, and that would be kind of your, okay, I think I'll go check this out in person. So unexpected benefit, I guess. And not getting flooded with people like that. That just has happened for one new family that I'm aware of. Jane shares that she has the same kind of change of heart about prepackaged communion elements. I do not share, and in fact, if I could get rid of it tomorrow, I would get rid of those prepackaged communion elements because you can't open them. They're to open. I sit there and I just struggle with it, and I finally just take a piece of the bread that I broke and cheat.
Can I say something? The first time I saw those, Bo,
yeah,
somebody offered it to me and I declined it and said, no, thank you. I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
Had no idea. So I didn't take it.
Yeah. Yeah. I call them communion shot glasses. Emrys.
Yeah, or Chrysables, I've heard them referred to as well. That's another big thing for me. It's emotive. I know that it's because of my embodied state, but all this COVID stuff is about our embodied state. Man, there's something about like a real chunk of bread and a real
sandwiches.
not that our cups of juice were ever like really big, but I guess at least they were maybe at least an ounce. You get down to like a half to a third of an ounce. It just, I don't know. You've gone so, I guess it's a matter of degree. You've gone so far from an actual meal that I just think let's just I don't know, let's just write down that we did it on paper and not even and then of course you're throwing away plastic as well too, which is never savory to me. But I can't wait to be back to big chunks of bread and big swallows of juice.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm not a fan of the the Christables. I'm stealing that, Emrys. Thank you.
It's time to wind us.
I think, we're getting to the close of our time here together. Melanie, were you had your
Melanie's
hand up?
ready.
Melanie had something to say.
Just
Pipe in.
just a sidebar. When my son was 8 years old, he suggested we all get a half a loaf of bread and a big glass of grape juice. And I thought that was a brilliant idea. But anyway, sorry.
No, I think that's great.
It is about abundance. We're
Yep.
talking about abundance, even in a world that talks about scarcity.
In the freezer, and when it thawed, it was all wet on the bottom. I went to bed and it was like, ooh.
Well, I really, I appreciate what some of the things that you guys wouldn't want to bring back, but I think, John, what you had shared to not bring back would be the idea of fear. Leave it back here with the pandemic. I think that's a really good insight from your group. Gay, did I see your hand go up? And now I don't. Oh, there she is. Okay. You moved.
Yes, I was just going to say that one of the things I think for so many people that were shut-ins, the only way they got communion was if the pastor brought it to them. And this way, when they go on Zoom, go do virtual, they can, grab a piece of bread or a cracker or whatever they have and go ahead and feel like they can participate in communion.
Yeah, that we invite people to join us in communion online, I think is really powerful. I don't know if there's something in the Book of Order against that, so, but yeah.
It was something the denomination had to struggle with at the beginning. And actually, initially, the denomination said, no, none of this sort of electronic communion. But as it became clear that, this is not going to be a 2-month thing, it had to rethink that. And so how are we around the table when we're not around the table?
Yeah. And I think, for my own perspective as well, the adaptability that we've been able to bring to the fore with COVID, even the fact that, just last week, it became clear to us as a cluster that we needed to do this meeting online and we needed to address the pandemic and the issues of COVID rather than, as we've traditionally done this particular meeting. That word pivot or adapt, I think, is something that would be beneficial even as we hopefully return to some kind of normalcy. I think that could be the biggest lesson God is teaching us, is God needs an adaptable church that can really adapt to circumstance in order to fulfill mission. And I think all of our churches, from what I've heard, have done just an amazing job with that. I just wanted to close with, the initial question, do we bring back the bulletin? And I think one of the things as I'm thinking about leadership into the future, I'm thinking about the leaders in my church, but I'm thinking of myself as a leader, is for every one of these questions, there's an opportunity. We can ask. I think there's a sense of urgency sometimes to, let's get back to normal. But for every time that there's some step that we might take in that direction, there's this opportunity to ask, well, what do we really value here? And, and even just a simple thing like the question that was brought to me last Sunday, are we going to bring back the Sunday prior, sorry. When are we going to bring back the bulletins? This person that was asking is not going to leave the church over the bulletins issue. And so we have this time and we have an opportunity to consider, what do we want to be? And there's bigger questions, obviously, than the bulletins. It's kind of a smaller question. But that's what I wanted to leave you all with, is just this, it's not been easy. You guys that have been doing at this for a while are been doing a great job. And then those of you stepping into leadership right now, thank you for doing so. But you know, there are all these opportunities I think God is giving us in the midst of the pandemic turmoil. And I think Emrys has shared that, and Jane has shared that, and Susie and Sarah certainly shared that in their conversation. There's some major pluses that are happening for us in the midst of this. And I don't know if we'll bring back the bulletin or not. What a great conversation to be able to have, though. And what a great conversation to turn into a value conversation. You know, what do we value? What is our mission here? And what are we trying to accomplish? And how does a bulletin help us or not help us to achieve that?
So
yes, ma'am.
a good question would be is how better could we spend the money and the labor that is involved with the bulletin?
I think that's an excellent part of the question, because it is resources, right? And our resources are not typically expanding in this time, they're shrinking. So, you know, how do we want to utilize our resources? I think that's great, Virginia. Well, I don't want to cut off conversation, but I do want to move things along. And I know that Emrys has a song to close us with, and Dan's going to close us in a word of prayer. But is there anything else anybody wanted to share or insight you had, or yes, John?
Something that I just read, it's kind of ironic within the last 3 days. It was a statement that was made by Voltaire. And just for all of us as leadership, what he suggested was judge a man by his questions, not by his answers. And I think that's the way we started off, that Emrys alluded to that we don't want to be people who are the answer people for our congregations. We need to listen, and we need to encourage and ask good questions.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Yeah. Unmute for me, will you? And I apologize. I'm guessing you're not Carolyn.
That's Jerry.
Carolyn
would be correct.
Okay. Carolyn's been sitting next to you, though. I've seen her there.
When she's not in the background talking, yes. I just wanted some input. I'm a newbie as far as an elder. I'm Jerry Brown, by the way, with Calvary in Bayfield. This has been quite enlightening for me, just the sharing of the other churches in the area, realizing we're not alone in what we're thinking about. In fact, it's all very common issues. And it seems like this would be a wonderful tool to continue as we go through, hopefully, coming out of this pandemic thing, to meet like this, at least periodically. And I know it's a lot of work for someone, and share our ideas and thoughts, whether it's, call it a whatever, but it would be, I think, of benefit to all the churches and all the people that are involved here to realize that we're all in the same boat. We're dealing with it, in some of us in better ways or different ways than others. So that's just my 2 cents worth.
No, I appreciate you sharing that, Jerry. And, you know, we've met annually for this church officer training. And honestly, it's looked quite a bit different than this in years past, because we're not in a pandemic in years past. And there's all these nuts and bolts and all sorts of things that we've covered. And, you know, we'll do that sort of stuff as well. But at our last cluster gathering, we did talk about offering some kind of further conversation on some said topic or issue that we know is affecting all of our churches. So thank you for suggesting that, Jerry. And we actually did discuss, you know, would there be a good reason and good opportunity to connect like this, especially since everybody's so familiar with this platform.
Right.
So,
Just the brainstorming is worth a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So we're talking about doing something along those lines, and we'll keep you all posted as to how that develops.
This is Carolyn, and since you seem to miss my presence, let me put my 2 cents worth in. I've been to all of those other trainings and heard the same thing over and over and over again, and have often come away with more questions than answers. I love this kind of approach, so I think this is a big improvement. So there's my 2 cents worth.
Thanks, Caroline. Appreciate it. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for your attention to today. Thanks for sitting on your screens for so long. And I'm going to turn it now over to Emrys and Dan for a few moments closing our time together. But a big thanks to you, and a big thanks to all of your input. And appreciate all of our pastors here too, who have made, and Susie, who's not here with us, for sharing with us. Thanks, everybody.
All right. For a closing song, I've chosen another one from the Glory to God hymnal, which I had not encountered before. Oh wait, I think it was in what used to affectionately be called the Blue hymnal. It's Let Us Talents and Tongues Employ. In Glory to God, it's number 526. If you want to go find it in the Glory to God hymnal, that's where it is. And consummate with our conversation just earlier, it's a communion hymn, and it's one of my favorite hymns for finishing communion time. So although we didn't do bread and juice, maybe we experienced some communion of the Spirit here this morning. That's my segue into it. I have no idea how my laptop microphone receives my verbal sound, my singing, and the guitar at the same time, if they go well together or not. So I'm just going to apologize in advance if it doesn't come across well over Zoom. But here it is, and sing along if you'd like to. Although once again, it gets difficult if we're broadcasting our voices all into the Zoom space. So it's weird to say, mute yourselves and then sing, but there it is, mute yourselves and then sing. Oh, there you go. Look, it says hymn number 514, the Blue 1990s hymnal, 1990 hymnal of the Presbyterian Church. If you want to find it there, you can find it there as well. This is Let Us Talents and Tongues Employ. And Bo's going to click through, there we go. He's going to click through the lyrics on the screen as we go. Let us talents and tongues employ, reaching out with a shout of joy. Bread is broken, the wine is poured, Christ is spoken and seen and heard. Jesus lives again, earth can breathe again, pass the word around, loaves are bound. Jesus lives again, earth can breathe again, pass the word around, loaves are bound. Christ is able to make us one. At the table he sets the tone, teaching people to live and bless, loving word and indeed express. Jesus lives again, earth can breathe again, pass the word around, loaves are bound. Jesus lives again, earth can breathe again, pass the word around, loaves are bound. Jesus calls us in, sends us out, bearing fruit in a world of doubt, gives us love to tell, bread to share, God Emmanuel everywhere. Jesus lives again, earth can breathe again, pass the word around, loaves are bound. Jesus lives again, earth can breathe again, pass the word around, loaves are bound. Jesus lives again, earth can breathe again, pass the word around, loaves are bound.
Dan, would you close our time in a word of prayer?
Yeah, Bo, can you hear me? Yeah, good, good. I'd like to thank everybody for participating and leading this thing together and participating together. It's been a wonderful experience for all of us to have a very just share and collaborate with our struggles together. I think some of the things that come through very good are the fact that we love. We love our church, we love each other, we love what we're called to do, and we're continuing to do that. Initially, I took an assignment to take a part of this, and then I thought maybe I had better not right now. I had long COVID, I guess, and I've learned lately that that is one factor of having a stroke for many, particularly young people like us. We've been here a long time, I know. I've kind of learned that when I talked, I never did make any sense to anybody, and so nothing really has changed. But I do appreciate you. I love you. And it's a dark, dark time that we've been going through. You think of Isaiah, but God gave us that message that he has given us a light, a great light, and it will shine forever. And we read in the early verses of John that the light will dispel the darkness. It's more powerful than the darkness, and it will continue to shine, to line bright. So let's have a closing prayer. Dear God, we are deeply thankful for your love for us and for the fact that there's a lot of different ways of doing things together. And we thank you that we have the freedom to do things in different ways and to collaborate and share and to try new and different ways of doing that. But may we continue to love you, reach out to each other, to love our church, to love each other, and to love all the people for which you've given your life for the whole world. So we pray and trust that you will guide us as we get able to have more opportunities. And we believe that with all our heart. We look forward to the future together, and may you bless us all. In the name of Christ, we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks, everybody, for being here. This meeting has been recorded, and so I will get this out to all of our prospective pastors, and we'll have a link to it and whatnot in case you want to review something or send this off to somebody who was not able to join us today. But God bless and keep you as you go. Thanks, everybody, for being here.
Thank you, Bo.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bo.